Paul! So Dune Part 2 is the most DLC movie I've ever seen. Right now it's at like, what, 9 out of 10 on IMDb. Actual mistake. I sat through this movie on a precious Saturday evening in the cinema, and the best talking piece I have about it is that my arse literally cramped up like a hydraulic press while an old woman was death rattling next to me for the first hour of the movie. I was trying to at least get some satisfaction of my time from the luxury Odeon Premier Plus seats I've booked. Like, they were literally still wet with sweat from the previous slugs who sat there. They literally are just the same size seats, like the recliners, but with thicker, more sweaty leather. Like, oh, I know what the best way to watch a film is. Sat in a sweaty theatre where I constantly have to peel myself off the sweaty chair before it corrodes the damn leather. But I digress. Like, I just want to say, I did in fact like Dune Part 1 and 2 more than I disliked them both. There's just something missing, man. So when I said that I liked Dune Part 1 and Part 2, I was lying. What I actually meant was that I loved Dune 1 and then disliked Dune 2 so much that it ruined the first one. What I actually meant when I said I liked them was that I loved the production and everything the crew did to craft an excellent blockbuster looking movie for both movies, for both parts. Dune 1, 2, 3, 4, eventually 5, they're gonna look good. The movies as products are what I genuinely dislike. Like when everyone gets all excited when baking cookies or something, but then it comes out exactly what you expected, a bland cookie. It's that concept of appreciating the intricacies of producing something and like its presentation, only for it to come out mid as shit, because at the end of the day you're making a cookie, a perfectly fine mid cookie. So what about both movies did I think was well baked? Well, the casting, like the casting was brilliant. Like I found myself soy facing at the screen when I saw my favourite Marvel actors. They finally have interesting movies to be part of. So the actors I've never seen before, like Paul. You named your sci-fi legendary space conqueror f***ing Paul. I never once felt like I was watching people pretend to put on a cool, corny voice or half-assed stoic mumble of a line read. Like, it all felt natural. And, like, it actually let me be immersed in these characters' lives. Like, Dune 1 especially, I was so immersed. It was amazing. Like, but then, the second one, like, the two main characters, like, they gave each other Google eyes and said, "Stop looking at me like that." like it actually made me clench my ass so hard. I was cringing. Like, I'm pretty sure I popped a pile. It was that f***ing tight. But yeah, I think it was only that one instance where I felt like, oh, I'm watching a f***ing pantomime. The overall physical props and costumes of the movies were amazing. The movie was going for this theme of power imbalance, so the two sides are struggling and scuffed to like get their hands on anything they can. Like, that comes across in the designs brilliantly. Everything looks dirty, clean, ragged, trashed. It's like, it perfectly immerses you in this like harsh world they're forced to inhabit. They'll just use anything they're given. It's amazing. It feels believable. We can ignore the CGI for a little bit. Like, look at this little freak that turned up for 5 seconds. But yeah, Dune 1, watching that film on its own, you can't fault it. Like, the world they give you, the world they throw you into, like, oh my God, it's the first movie that's a pleasure to invest yourself in the world building, finding out how this world works, the power struggles, the ecosystem, and then actually watching this ecosystem directly intertwine with the core conflicts. Like, it's mesmerizing. Like, notice how I said the first movie. Yeah, like this would be a perfect time to discuss. The first movie, I can safely say, avoids most of this criticism, since it was always meant to be the setup movie. The movie you invest yourself in and await further content. Like, yeah, it was brilliant. You heard me gush about it. You heard me cream my pants. It was awesome. The second one felt like DLC. I thought this was a hot take, but then I found out that this movie was adapting the second half of the first book, so I guess I wasn't too off. What's new? It's just more setup. So I know this isn't intended to be the finale to the series by any means. Like, you're telling me that part 2 fills any kind of quota that traditional sequels are traditionally meant to serve? Like, good sequels often expand the world, introduce new conflicts which can threaten the status quo, and expand on previous knowledge of the world and characters. Like, I know there's more to it than that, but were any of these 3 points done in the sequel? Well, yeah, actually, all 3. But that doesn't mean they were done well. So, on the first point, we do get to see more of the world, technically. The whole planet is a desert. It's crazy. It's vast. Okay, we see more desert. Okay, cool. That's great. Thanks. We do see like nice interiors of like the places the Fremen live in. All this crazy, cool like world building. It would be cool if it served plot relevance. No, I don't care about these environments if they serve no point to the plot other than to get destroyed later. And like, oh, we want revenge. We like, off, man. We do get to see more of the Boogie Troopers planet though, which I will say is awesome. If it had any plot relevance, it'd be good, but it introduced a waste of a villain. It makes a stellar action set piece that's just wasted. It's all black and white and there's cheap CGI behind all the cool black and white filter, but that's besides the point. It looked awesome, but it did nothing. We never saw this place again. We never get to even see more than a square mile of this place. It's all to serve a mid-as-shit villain's introduction. Like, you could have seen him, like, come out of nowhere and interrupt the status quo. Actually put a threat on the lives of the people of this story. But no, he's just, oh, look how cool he is. He can fight. Yeah, f*** off. This kind of world building might make sense if we saw any implication as to why we are seeing this. Will it come back later? Like, will they re-release this scene in colour? Will we see it in Dune Part 6? My gripes with this whole new wasted world building will make more sense when I talk about the villain of Dune, but that'll be hard because there are no villains, just kids who might as well have not shown up in the movie other than to look cool. So shall we talk about the villains then? The villains don't matter. Who are we even supposed to be scared of in this film? In Dune Part 1 we were introduced to the Empire, the big baddies, but like, they just stare at the command of the Emperor because power and money, apparently. Like, okay. But I didn't feel this way about the baddies when I watched Part 1. Before I watched Part 2. They were cool, they were interesting, they were frightening. Their designs scream power and dread. Like, we can feel the weight they're going to have on the story. The movie ends without a satisfying conclusion, which is great. It drives up hype for the next part. We don't know what these guys are going to do. Like, we don't know what they're going to do next, adding to that suspense and terror. I couldn't wait to find out how the main characters and the villains' conflicts would develop and intertwine as their motivations entangle and we see these powerful forces clash. It was awesome. But yeah, Dune Part 2 is where we see this idea of the emotional connection between the main character and the villains intertwine in the most pointless and shallow way possible. Like, spoiler, it's revenge. I'm trying not to spoil the movie too much, so I won't say why, but main character Paul really wants to get revenge on Darth Vader over here, but he also doesn't, because that would mean his visions are coming true. I forgot to mention the visions, didn't I? Well, that's because they're just teaser bait, like jangling keys for the next scene of the movie. Like, oh wow, he sees these visions and now they come true. He doesn't want them to come true, so what does he do? Not much. Just walks around until another character tells him, this is happening, so you go here. Brilliant. Where's the struggle? The power imbalance? The dread of the first movie? It's nowhere. We know how things are going to play out because we've seen it. Paul wants revenge and then doesn't want it and then wants it again because people tell him he does. The pacing's crazy at the start of this second movie. Out of nowhere, the plot demands him to get all edgy and stoic about getting his revenge. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a line of dialogue that's just, I want revenge. Like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know who exactly he wants revenge on. Like, we know who it is. I know I'm skipping so much context, but my main point here is that his connection to the villains is shallow. Like, throughout the movie, this doesn't develop. We're introduced to a new villain, like the one that I was talking before, who does literally nothing for the plot and has no emotional connection to the main hero, despite the movie trying to make you think there is, with all this crazy grand setup and him coming in and shooting some rocks, I guess. The main soy-face moment they wanted you to curl your toes and shriek at the screen at was when they said, Paul, you are related to the villains. Like, f*** off, movie makers. Like, what? You are my father. Like, I don't care. Like, okay, that does nothing for the story. There's no sudden twist this causes. There's no wound that's suddenly opened. Even the main character shrugs it off. He has no reaction. He just gawps at the guy that tells him. There's no expansion on previous knowledge of the world and characters. It's just a sticker that says, here's our compelling reveal. Suck our cocks. It's horrible. Like, you can tell they just wanted you to point and laugh at the screen and shriek. It was just nothing. Should we talk about the climax of the movie? Because I'm itching to talk about how shit it is. So all that ranting leads us to the end of the movie where Paul leads his worm army to kill all the villains in one act. Like, I don't even care about the worms. Yeah, they're cool, but they do nothing. Oh, he drinks the worm and it just, I don't care. It gives him the visions, it's cool, oh, it's crazy, it's all mystical, not explained, don't care. Suddenly the Emperor comes to the planet because, oh, the other villains were being attacked too much. Like, oh, he's just come to such a dangerous planet out of nowhere to scold his lessers. Like, why not just have them come to him? They've got spaceships. I know why they're here, because Paul needs to get his revenge on everyone. So what do? They run at the enemy. They ride the worms, they simply break in effortlessly. A lot of it off screen, actually. so the main character can get to the chamber where all of the villains are coincidentally sat in one room waiting. One of the main villains from Dune 1 I was gushing over because of how cool and scary he was. He had all these cool powers that were like teased, but we never got to saw it on screen. Spoilers, he's gonna die. He literally got bonked on the head the previous scene by, I don't even remember, the Emperor. So Paul just walks up, says, "Sorry, uncle, they're related, by the way, yeah," and just stabs him. Like what? That's the most pathetic victory ever. All this setup for nothing. There's no big conflict. I was like, oh, that's the point. That's the point. It all just happens. It's all gritty. And I was like, no, it's lazy. What was all that setup? An entire 2 movies for setup. Something like that needs a fucking grand payoff. Like, no, it's just a waste of time. It has the balls to think we care that he just killed his uncle. That we didn't even need to know it was his uncle to have any stake on the story. So then the Emperor needs to stand trial or some shit. So that villain from earlier that I was talking about, he just comes in and stands as his trial by combat champion. Just because he wants to kill. He's cool. Oh yeah, he's cool. It's just, it's frustrating. After an admittedly perfect fight scene, oh my god, it was amazing. Like, the choreography, brilliant. But again, that's the production, not the writing or the story or anything. He just dies to Paul. He just gets stabbed again, like his uncle. There's nothing crazy, he just gets stabbed. And there was another easy quip about them being related, like mid-fight, like, oh, I'm going to kill you like I killed my mother. Like, fuck off. Like, we get it, you're cool. So Paul rescues the princess and then declares himself Emperor of the Mushroom Kingdom. It's so rushed and so nothing. Paul has no connection to any of these villains. They taint the first movie's image by doing nothing interesting with them. Like, the powers and capabilities are wasted, and they just stub their toes and die at the 10 minutes of the movie. Nothing happens. Like, Paul literally just turns up to third party the villains and claim the chicken dinner. It's shit. Like, you just feel a hole in your stomach watching it. There was just something missing. So, in conclusion, as much as I loved the first movie for its amazing world building and genuinely hype as shit setup, the second movie just shows more of the same, and has the gall to try and convince me it has any type of depth or anything new to say. The main character's motivation is revenge. The villains have no emotional stake in thwarting the main character, so there's no real tension. The twists are shallow and cheap, and then finally the resolution is so forced and came out of nowhere that there's just no satisfying payoffs. It's so frustrating. It felt like the movie was tricking us into thinking it was grander than it actually was. You could watch this movie at surface level about a good guy getting revenge against the power-hungry baddies. It'd make as much sense as watching it with that analytical lens. It's horrible. You are not rewarded for investing any thought into the depth they want you to think the movie has. None of the depth changes the movie. It's just vague themes and concepts that are explored that don't progress the plot or characters. It's just to make you go, ooh, this is so emotional and tense. Paul, you are the chosen one, and this deep world has chosen you. There's all like themes of fate and destiny, which, yeah, that's cool on paper, but it doesn't do anything in movie form. We're just spoiled for what's happening next. We're just watching a character meander and move on to the next scene because the characters tell him to. He has visions, but they don't guide him in any way. He tries to fight it, I guess, but it's frustrating. Like the title of this video suggests, I think this is a movie that screams to be read. So yeah, it's the most original take ever. I think the book is better, and I haven't even read it. But something that kept nagging me whilst watching both Dune 1 and 2, I kept thinking to myself, this movie is screaming out in pain to be read. And that's probably more an overall compliment to the source material it's adapting, because with a book you can fully immerse yourself in that environment, and then the first movie and the world it's building encapsulates that energy perfectly. That slower pace feels much more natural to be enjoyed as a book over a long relaxing period of time where you can really visit that world and its characters. I will say that Dune 1 was the closest I've seen a movie accomplish the idea of watching a visual book unfold. I can imagine by investing time and patience into a longer, richer story in book form that can convey much more complex themes and feelings with that time and space to really hook a reader, I could probably forgive the samey nature of the second movie, and I no doubt would be treated as much more explained and explored versions of the depth that the movie was trying to convince me it had. I don't think I've ever watched a movie that has made me love the source material before I even read it. These movies scream to be read, and that is why I think these movies are so frustrating, yet satisfying at the same time. If someone can please convince me everything I've just said is wrong, please reach out, because oh my god, I want to love these movies. I want that feeling I had from Dune 1 again. I need someone to explain to me why I'm wrong, please. I think that woman might have died next to me in the cinema. She was gonked out.